Hello, everybody. Happy Friday to you. I'm Jessica Dugas, and this is The Breakthrough Show. I'm so grateful that you're here with us today for a conversation that is both timely and timeless because it's about one of the most important relationships we'll ever have in our lives, the one between parent and child. Now, if you've been around the Breakthrough Show Network for any length of time, you'll recognize today's guest. He's not just a returning guest here on the Breakthrough Show, but he's also my friend, collaborator, and co host of Beyond 2D, a space where we explore life beyond the surface and beyond our opinions and definitions, and we just go deeper. That's what we do. Farron Dozier is someone who brings wisdom from his own lived experiences and blends it with his passion for helping others heal, grow, and connect. The work he's doing right now around healing the parent-child relationship is powerful, practical, and deeply needed. What I admire most about Farron is his honesty. He doesn't just talk about the victories, he talks about the struggles, the accountability, and the breakthroughs along the way. And of course, because he and I are also journeying together through Beyond 2D, we'll not only dive into his work, but we'll give you a little update on what's happening with this season of the show. So get ready for an honest, heartfelt, and eye-opening conversation. Please welcome my friend and my co-host, Farron Dozier. Hello, hello, happy Friday, and welcome to the guest chair.
Who are you talking about?
The guest chair you get to be in here
Oh,
this
wow.
afternoon.
Hello.
Good to have you here on this side of the, this. It's nice to have you. You're gonna have a firing squad of questions today.
Let's go.
But this is such a good topic today because I think when you mention parent-child relationship, a lot of people go, well, I don't have children, so I'm good. Like
Right.
they don't think about that they are also themselves a child.
Exactly.
And I think even those relationships where we see, people say, I had a great relationship with my parents growing up, even those, there are little bits and pieces
Yes.
of that relationship that we take with us that are the foundation of how we deal with other people in our lives. And
Yeah.
so that's why the conversation is timely and timeless because we're going to keep working on this.
Definitely. Lifelong journey, let me tell
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Um
Thank you for
so
that.
yeah, go ahead.
No, I just said thank you for that. I was like, who is she talking about? Who's that dude?
I made it up. I made it up is what I did. No, before we really dive into it, why is this topic even, important to you? Because your kids are grown
Hmm.
and you've worked through the stuff with your parents. So now that you've worked through why don't you just let it go?
Yeah. So the beauty of it is because of the work that I had to do for myself, right? At
Mhm.
40 years old and being able to go to my parents for forgiveness and then recognizing that I have three daughters. I need to go to them and allow them to forgive, to talk to me and create the space for forgiveness toward them as well. And so being a father and that at that age of going to my parents and then going to my children, I've been able to experience both of the directions, right? Of what it is to reconcile and create that new relationship with your family and your children. So for me, it's like we say parent to child relationship, but as you said, I come from actually the child to parent relationship because we're all someone's child. And as you articulated, we take those childhood experiences with us, and some of them are good qualities and some of them are not so good qualities only because it impacts our behavior. So I'm not talking about the activity of what it is to be someone's child, but our experience as what it was to be a child and how that actually plays out in our character today.
Right.
So it's and it was like I said, we'll get into it, but that's why I really do. I language it the child to parent, because most people focus on the parent to child relationship, and then it's like the parent's responsibility. But what about that child, right? At
Hmm.
some point, that child, we grew up and we got to be like, you know what? There's some stuff that I grew up with in my mind that I don't understand. I need to go figure this out, right? And
Right.
and and, and if we tell the truth to ourselves, we recognize it, right? We know our mind reminds us, man, I love my mom, but she get on my nerve. Or I love my dad, but he was a jerk. Like they like, oh, they're my mom. Oh, I love my mom and dad, but they're crazy. Like if
Yeah.
you hear how people talk about their parents, you listen to that and it's like, oh yeah, there's something there. Oh, but I had a great relationship. Yeah, but then how you talk about them from your heart is really where um, we kind of hide those experiences, but we say those things right out of our mouth and don't even realize it.
Right. Right. So,
Yeah.
question. There's going to be people that are going to watch this show who maybe they don't know their parents. Maybe they were raised by their grandparents, their auntie or uncle, their, mentor, whoever.
Yeah.
And so we know in those situations that yes, there's still work that needs to be, there could easily be work that needs to be done around the abandonment thing and these things with the actual parent.
Yeah.
But will the concepts that you're talking about today also apply to the one who raised us as our parent, not necessarily blood relation, but like whether it's the grandma or the aunt or, whoever in that situation?
Definitely. I believe I can touch on my experience of that because I was raised by my grandparents from 2 to 8. Even though my mom did pick me up on the weekends, there was this transition uh, that happened as a child for me that was a key experience of me being disconnected from my mom, right? And so I believe that if, as I share these conversations, and if you apply these principles, right, and be used by the conversation, you could look in your life and be like, oh, well, no wonder. Now I could have a little bit compassion about my mom or dad because I don't know what they were going through, but they were going through something as I am today with myself, right? So the relatedness is what I'm pointing to. You may not
Right.
understand it, but if you could relate to how you are today as an adult, then that could put you in the space of what was your parents dealing with,
Mm,
that they left you with your grandmother, or your grandmother took responsibility to raise you, or your uncle. I don't think it's much different as the pieces. It's the experience that we're pointing to.
right. Right. Yeah, I think that's important to know because like I said at the beginning, you say child parent relationship or parent child relationship whatever, and a lot of people have like a picture of everything was fine, or well, I wasn't raised by my parents, or they put whatever there to not have to have the conversation,
Right, exactly.
because it's not comfortable. it's
Yeah.
it's you gotta dig into it a little bit. So I just wanted to clarify those quick things, but we're gonna really get into, like I said, the potatoes of the conversation, like really get into it. But so let's just put some frosting on it first.
Okay.
what
Okay.
has been what has been some of the joy for you in digging into this work?
Oh, let's talk about peace of mind. Let's
Mm,
talk about freedom. Let's talk about a new relationship to myself. Talk about me restoring my own self love, self esteem, self worth, self affirmation, because I got free from the past of the stories that was in my head that had me feel like I wasn't good enough, I wasn't worth it. So we all have those I'm nots, right? So
right.
discovering those I'm nots, realizing that they're not my I'm nots, they were just some corrupted perception of a child that was my truth as a child, but it wasn't the truth. And when I got some other pieces of the past experiences from my parents and from other people in my life, it was like, well, no wonder. And so
Mm,
all I could really do when I discovered these different experiences and decisions and stories, I just laugh like, you got to be kidding me. That's what that was like. And so
mm,
there's a space of freedom, right? And not the happiness, because the happiness connects to circumstances. It's the freedom of the joy of, wow, like I could tell the truth to myself, and that was a made up story.
yeah.
And it's like, wow. And if my brain could do that, what else have I made up that wasn't the truth about Farron?
Yeah.
And that's been the freedom of discovering these, 10, 11 things that I've discovered so far, and having the freedom and the peace and the joy. Like, man, how could a child think that and
Mm,
really grow up? and behave that way. And then in my 50s, like, oh my gosh, like my mind is free. I'm like a teenager again because I've dealt with all that stuff. It's like
Right.
pure joy, like
Yeah.
pure joy.
Peace is definitely a good word for me in this conversation, because even the now, I haven't gone as deep into it as you have, but in the
Yeah,
work that I have done, peace has been something that I have definitely walked away with in the conversation, because
yeah,
like you said, you make these stories up. I really spent most of my life feeling that a few things were my fault, that
hmm
there were things that, and I took them on as that I was the problem. And
right.
then after I start digging in, it's like, oh, that had nothing to do with me.
Exactly,
Now I can be
exactly,
peaceful, you know?
exactly.
So listen, we're going to dive into this. We're going to take a super quick break. And when we come back, we're going to dive into the healing in that parent child relationship, child, parent, parent, child. Everyone needs to listen to this, because even if you don't have children, all of you
Yes,
were a child at one time.
somebody's
All
child.
right. You were somebody's child. We'll be right back after this.
Breakthroughs are about more than you might think. They're about discovering who you are, digging deep, reaching to the core of your soul. They're about healing yourself, understanding your beliefs, creating a ripple effect. And it's not just those initial moments that matter. It's about using them to bring more joy into our own lives and the lives of others. It's about having fun, letting loose, enjoying every moment life has to offer. It's about finding a safe space. It's about creating connection. Join us each and every day for exclusive programming, special events, and a community to call home, where we invite you to explore, change the way you look at and live your life, and go beyond the breakthrough. So we ask you, are you ready? We'll see you online at thebreakthroughshow.com.
Welcome back to the Breakthrough Show. Today is Friday, October 3rd, 2025. I'm Jessica Dugas, your host, and I'm here. I know. And I'm here with, I almost said my co host, but he's not today. My special guest,
Not today.
Farron Dozier. He is my co-host for Beyond 2D. He's a veteran. He's a sickle cell trait advocate. I mean, and and today we are talking about healing the parent-child relationship. So we kind of got it out of the way in the beginning that this conversation is really for everybody. And even if you feel like you have a great relationship with your children, with your parents, this is still something to listen to, because you always have, I talk about this often, the concept of the mosaic, that every person, every circumstance, everything we experience in our lives becomes a little piece of what we're made up of. And our parents, or our children make up bigger pieces than others sometimes in that conversation. And so it's very important. Where do you want to start with this today, Farron?
I want to start right here. Let's get some like basics out the way,
Yeah.
right? For biblically, I learned that a lot of times we say, "Oh, I love my mom, I love my dad," right? But the word doesn't really say that as a particular. The word says, "Children, obey your love." How to say? Honor your father and mother, and children obey your parents. Those are two scriptures, and one of those is a commandment with the promise. The honor your father and mother is the commandment with the promise, and that's really at the root of it. So a lot of times we say, "Oh, I love my mom, I love my dad," but really we're supposed to honor them, and honor them is how we think about them, right? Because I didn't love my mom and dad every day. Like that's not realistic. So when you talk about, when I go from filtering life through the Word of God now, it's like, what are the foundation pieces of who I get to be in my, and learning my new behavior and my new character, and learning that that commandment was to honor your father and mother. I learned it as, is how I think about them. And if I really think about my parents from a corrupted perspective, then guess what my thoughts are going to be about my parents, right? It's going to be the negative context. But if I also think about my parents from the esteem and honoring them, it's not saying that I love them all the time, but how I think about them is so important. And again, that's why this conversation is important, because it's based off not the activity that you do for your parents or your child, but the experience of the relationship between that child and parent, and that parent to child. And I love you, but then how I think about you could be a totally different aspect and experience for me. So getting to that part of it, and I didn't learn it from the Bible first. I went through a personal development education. And even this conversation wasn't even started because I was looking to see how I could heal with my parents. I was actually depressed and in suicide ideation from my military career coming to an end, from my sickle cell trait exertion with the rhabdomyolysis. So it wasn't even, oh, I want to find out my relationship with my parents. It was more like, how am I going to survive? Because I'm like, my life is over.
Right.
And that education actually took us down different conversations. And once I discovered the decision about my military life and life being over, and the story I made up about that, I'm like, well, if what else you got? Like, if I made if I made that story up that my life was over, then what else did I make up? And as we go through the process of that education, they put those subjects. Okay, let's talk about your relationship with your mom, with your dad, with your sit. And I'm like, so each one of those conversations, you actually get a chance to sit there and listen to the coach, and then apply that conversation to your life. And it was a conversation about your dad. And I always had this story about my dad as a little child in my head. It would just pop up in my mind. I knew it was there, but I never knew what it meant. And in that conversation, I was able to grab that story and put it through that curriculum, and realize that at 5 years old, I made up a story that my dad didn't love me at 5. And then to unravel that and realize that dude did love me. He did everything he could with the best of what he had. He provided for me the best he could, because then I was able to look at how he grew up and what his life was with his parents. And it was like, well, no wonder. And when I called him that weekend, when I discovered that, I said, Dad, thank you. Thank you for taking me to the beach. Thank you for taking me to Wiener Schnitzel and McDonald's and teach me how to color and going camping at the beach. Like, I thanked him for all the stuff that I could think of as a child. And then I said, by the way, I made up the story about you that I discovered that it wasn't true. And I told him the story that I made up. And my dad said was, I just want to spend time with you. You're my son. Like, none of that affected him. I was the one carrying that story that he didn't love me. And I had evidence. I had proof. I had body sensations. I had feelings. Like, you couldn't tell me. But guess what? I never said that out of my mouth to anyone. I carried that to myself, talking to myself from 5 to 40.
Right.
That's 35 years that I thought about my dad in a way that he didn't love me.
Whatever it is that you believe, you will find the proof for. I mean, truly,
your subconscious mind will collect the evidence.
Proof. You will make a list with check boxes, and and that's tough. And going back to what you were saying about, the biblical part of, honor your father and mother sort of thing. I really struggled with that, and I remember my unpacking of those verses, because even if you take the biblical stuff out of it, you still hear of it in secular homes where you might hear respect your mom and dad. It's just said in a different way. Okay. And so, but I remember unpacking that Bible verse and going to my pastor and going, I'm angry, and how am I supposed to, how, like, imagine a home where that is extremely abusive, and how could you possibly honor someone? And the pastor at the time was very clear with me, and he said, that those verses have nothing to do with you being a doormat. Those verses don't have anything to do with you saying that their behavior was acceptable.
Right.
That's not what that says.
Right.
It's the honoring of the title, and the recognizing that without those people you would not have life. And there's many different layers to it, but it's not saying that you have to go, how you treated me was okay.
Right. Exactly.
That's not what that's saying. And so I wanted to share that with everybody today, because as I unpacked that bit of scripture for myself, it was a struggle, because I was pissed. I was like, no, I will not. And so that can be a really tough one, because people will run with it and go, well, that means that it's okay how they treated me. Nobody said that.
Yeah, no, yeah. There is so many, and that's what I'm saying. It's so many layers to this conversation, right? That one has to be willing to look at it from wherever you are with the discussion, right? And then take that thought or that memory and start to unravel it and see.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that, it didn't happen. It's not saying that that's not what happened, but when you understand, the brain science that I learned about, the basics, is that the brain is designed of memory pattern, action patterns, and perception patterns. And so when you understand how your brain operates and you start to look at life, you can see, there's an empirical truth that's what that looks like for me. And maybe I need to take a look at that, right? But it takes the willingness to, like you said, because to feel like I got to be responsible for it, or I'm giving them, they're going to be off the hook for what happened to me, or all those things that the mind wants to bring up. You got to be able to set that aside and just tell the truth about the basics of your experience.
Right. So if we know that we have been impacted by our relationship with our parents in any kind of way, or our children have been impacted by their relationship with ourselves, and we know that we need to work on those things, where do you sort of suggest that we start with that? Because it's such, like you said, it's so layered, and there's so many pieces to unpack and things to have to realizations about. And I think, I feel like the sort of easy answer would be, well, go have a conversation with the person, but I think that we can even go into those conversations sometimes with, like, we've got the blocks up where we still believe we still believe what we believe. So we're not coming into those conversations like sort of in a pure way, I guess. So where do you suggest that we start with all of this?
Again, for me, it's hard to have a generalized conversation. So the relatedness for me was, again, I was looking in my life at the time of like what's going on with me? Like, why do I act like the way I act, right? And again, we recognize it of our behavior. So I say you got to start to challenge your behavior. If you realize that there's something that you don't like about yourself or your behavior or your character, then that would be a place to look if you're willing to tell the truth. But most people aren't willing to tell the truth. They say, well, that's just the way that I am. Like, I grew up like this. But no, if you have one of those, well, that's just the way that I am, that might be where you want to look at, because it's not just the way that you are. It's what could be your experiences that caused you to act that way, right? And so a lot of times we look at the activity of what we do as life. And again, I reinforce the conversation of is who you get to be in life. And your experience of yourself as a being is, are you frustrated? Are you angry? Are you disappointed in yourself? Right? Do you experience hopelessness sometimes? Like, those are the experiences of us that could get in the way of having that conversation with myself first, right? Because you got to start with yourself first. Yeah. If you go to your parent first and you don't have the conversation in the right context, it could come across as a blame, right? And then now everybody's defensive. Right. So I had to really just take a look at I was willing to look at myself first and see what was my behavior? And like I knew I acted this way, but I didn't know where it was coming from.
Right.
And so the self-examination is with yourself first.
I mean, the self-examination makes sense to me also in the instances where we may have lost a parent or child before we can have like some sort of conversation or reconciliation, whatever.
Yeah.
And so you can still do so. I feel like so much of this work without the other party
Oh
even
yeah.
involved,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, you can. And like I said, in the courses that I've taken, you get the full spectrum of all of it, right?
Mm,
And I was just so grateful that I was able to hear with my dad in this conversation 8 years before he passed away,
mm,
right? So I can only imagine what it's like to have to heal with a parent who's passed on. It could be done, as you said, but I'm encouraging, hey, while your parents are still here, there's a way that you can restore this relationship, right? And have that conversation with that parent if you're willing to.
right.
And so yeah, but for me it was like I was grateful because when he passed away, there was no resentment, there was no regrets. I know from who I got to be with him, restored that relationship. Whether because he never changed. Like
Yeah.
my dad never changed. I saw that in who I was being as a very bad person to my dad. I really treated my dad bad because of how I
Mm,
thought he didn't love me, right? And he was more like a brother to me than he was my father because my parents weren't together. So I
right.
grew up separated from him. And I had enough proof again that he wasn't there because he would say he's gonna pick me up one day and he wouldn't pick me up. And so that's just more evidence of he doesn't love me. That's why he didn't pick me up, right? And I had
I mean,
all those years.
those that I mean, I know you use the word fracture often, and we've gone round and round with that word, but in this case, even in situations where it might be a really loving relationship with each parent, the fracture that happens in a family when there is divorce or separation, or
Exactly.
even if the relationship with the people individually are good, there's still that thing alone is something that sometimes we need to process through. So it may not be even like, well, I got along with them and they were nice to me.
Yeah.
Those little things that happen in a family, I feel like are also something that we can process through. Would you say that?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. Because again, if you understand what it is to be a human being, that our being
Mm,
is our experience. Sometimes transition and change for a child
mm,
could be traumatic. And we laugh when we drop our kindergarten child off and they're screaming and crying at the gate, right? Because they don't want to go into the classroom, right? We laugh and joke about those, but for some children, that is traumatic because they're being disconnected from you. And they may not understand I'm going to school now, right? So
right.
that was it. That so for me as my experience growing up, I was an emotional child,
Hmm.
and so the transitions and changes that went on from 2 years old was great. They took care of me, but for Farron, that transition and disconnection from his mother at 2 years old, and again, as the mind of a 2 year old, I barely had language. So
Right.
how does a 2 year old even know to be disappointed in his mother in the transition that's actually there taking care of him? So it's like that's how powerful the brain is. So when we talk about this healing process, as a parent, at some point we've got to understand that we've got to go get some knowledge. There's no manual to be a parent. We say that. So then what am I going to use to
Yeah.
say how am I going to be this father? Because again, the father for me is a role, it's not a person.
Right.
So if I'm going to become a father, then I need to go find out and get some education, some knowledge of what it is to be a father so that I could get some of these tools and maybe make the corrections.
Right.
But I'm saying before you become a father, why don't we have these conversations? Because now I'm already in the midst of being a father and I have all these pressures of life. I'm saying we could take this education to our children at 6 years old, 5 years old. So these principles that they could start healing with their parents early in the
Yeah.
age So now that child has an opportunity to grow and develop with some skills and some tools. So when they take on these different roles as a father or an athlete or whatever, that they have some knowledge that can help them manage their experience of life.
I mean, what would you say to people who would hear that and say, well, kids 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, they're not going to understand. They're not going to understand about all that and the healing and everything else. Like what's your response to that?
That's it's beautiful because the way that we teach and talk from this conversation is the conversations that we are putting in our children and having with our children, they're putting that in their memory. It's being stored, right? So if I come to you and say, Mom, I got a question about sex, and I'm 60 and I'm 6 years old, and as a parent, I'm like, oh, I'm not about to have this talk. We'll talk about this another time. Go sit down, go to your room and go do something else. Well, guess what? You didn't answer my question. So now I'm left to go either figure it out for myself or go ask somebody else.
Right.
So the downside of it is most of the time the child walks away and the mind makes up their own story about it.
Yep.
And then that becomes the child's truth. So now when you try and go back and make a correction or have a conversation, the child's like, well, I don't care what you say because I already made up. Like, they don't say it like that, but now there's a space of rebellion in that space. And then so they wonder why. Like for myself, those fractures that I had, I became shy. So they're like, oh, where's Farron? Oh, he's shy now. Like, he's shy. Well, how did Farron become shy? You labeled me as shy, but no one looked at, well, what happened? Like, what was going on to recognize that his demeanor changed or his attitude changed or his personality changed. And example, my own life, my grandson is 6 in first grade, and he's thinking that the kids don't like him because they're running to get water. When it's time for water, they're running to get in line for water, and he's left in the back.
They don't care. They just want the water.
But in his but his mind says they don't like me because they didn't wait for me.
Yep.
And so that little fracture started him out of his own mouth saying to his mother, "Are the kids gonna like me when I go to this party? Are they gonna like me?" So she's telling me, this is what Aiden's saying. I'm like, what? So I let it go by, but then it got worse. It was starting to get worse. Yeah. So I says, no, bring him over here so I can have a talk with him. And so she brought him over. And it was just he and I, and we were talking. So I was like, what's going on? I didn't know I knew, but I'm like, what's going on? What's going on with school, with daycare? And he says, oh, the kids don't like me. I'm like, what happened? And he told me the story.
Yeah.
They ran to get in line, and I was like, I was like, Aiden, that doesn't mean they don't like you. I said, but what would you do if you saw someone that was waiting in, last and waiting? I would wait for them. I said, oh, so you're kind. So guess what? Who do you get to be now in school? Kindness, caring, and courageous.
Yep.
So then I had to go then and look at the dictionary and say, what behavior can I add to that so that when he says, I'm being courageous, what is that? That's brave. I'm being caring. What is that? That's kindness. So now I'm putting those words in his heart so that he can start to at least hear it from grandpa. Yeah. And then I go and I question him. Hey, who are you being today? Who are you being? And he'll spit it out. So it's like planting those seeds I'm not saying it's going to be the entail all, but could help interrupt that experience that he was having, that the kids don't like me.
Right.
At 6 years old.
Right. And it will stop, it might not stop, but it'll put a little, maybe thinking about things so that we don't end up in our 40s and 50s on a show called Beyond 2D, figuring out what each of us feels like being liked looks like to us, Prime
example, I was second grade and I could read, but I would read with my finger or the ruler because my eyes would not stay on the line. So one day I raised my hand to read and the teacher picked me. And so I'm reading the cat in the hat, and so when I read with my finger, I sound because I'm sounding out each word. Second grade,
Mm-hmm.
somebody in the room laughed,
That
and
was the end of that.
I, Jessica, I said to myself, I am not going to read out loud, and I'm never
Mm-hmm.
going to raise my hand again.
Yep.
Now I was 6. You know when I discovered that? At 46.
Mm.
And then I looked at 46 and I looked at the damage and my experience, and I was like, no wonder. And that story was in my memory.
Yeah.
It floated around in my brain. And so when I used those tools and unraveled it, I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Like,
Yeah.
I've been acting this way. And the real impact on me was when I had my daughters, I didn't read the storybooks to them. Now this is the impact on myself, and I'm thinking there's an impact on them. But on me was I didn't take the Lion King books and the Dr. Seuss books and use my voice to make the characters and
Mm-hmm.
read bedtime stories to them.
Yeah.
So I called my daughters, like, hey, you know what? This is what I discovered of my behavior about not reading. I'm like, I want to ask you for forgiveness because I didn't read those books to you. You had a
Yeah.
VHS, you had a VCR with the rewinder, and she was 2 years old. Deja could pick her own movie, put it in the TV in the room by herself.
Yeah.
And I felt so bad. But then when I told them, they were like, oh, Dad, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But who was carrying it? I was.
Right. Yep.
So I'm saying as children, we might be carrying those emotions and those feelings toward our parents that could be in the way of us having that connection,
Mm.
right? That one thing that we think, well, I'm not going to say nothing to her because I know how she was in the past. So I already know what she's going to say.
Right.
So then I don't get an opportunity to have my mom show up different
Yeah.
because I already know.
Right.
And that
Now
and that's
I
hurtful.
know you and I and those even older than us come from sort of generations where the parent is like, it's like the parent is that's it, period, end of story. You respect your parent and you be quiet.
Yes.
And we weren't really raised in a way to converse with our parent about how things are going. We were not having family meetings about are you feeling loved today, are you
Yes.
feeling appreciated, all of
Yes.
these things. And
Yes.
so it could be for any of us that might have young children at home now, it could be a stretch to pause and go, well, how do you feel about this? Or how, I did this, how does that make you feel? And to shush and just listen, because we were not taught that. And
Yeah.
so what is that? Like, I think sometimes I do this sometimes now, and my kids look like I have 6 heads, and they're like, what's the catch?
Right. Exactly.
So what does that look like to start doing some of these things to heal the relationship, to really hear what our parent or child has to say about different things without jumping into like what we have to say because we're in charge?
Yeah. And that's the beauty of the parent to child relationship,
Mm.
is the fact that as parents, as a father, as a mother, we do disappoint our children.
Mm.
And as a child, as an adult, look in your life with your parents and how many times that you feel like you were disappointed in your parents. So that's the space that we're teaching from, that old one-directional conversation, it doesn't work anymore. It shows up like control by dominating, but you're dominating another person. That child is a human being. That child is a person. That child there's a man inside that child. Like a calf is a cow, right? We're people first. And so for a parent, it's difficult to find out if I've disappointed you. But I believe as a parent, that's where you want to start. You want to start with, hey, you know what? Let me talk to you. Have I ever disappointed you? And then let that child say, or even better, say, hey, you know what? I would like to have a conversation with you today. I'm not going to defend myself. I'm not going to get mad. I just want to know, have you ever felt disappointed in me? And let that child, best believe you're going to hear something.
Yeah.
And so when I did that with my daughters, because I had the skills, right? So I had the tools. I knew how to handle this conversation effectively without putting my feelings and emotions in the conversation. I was able to go back and say, hey, how do you feel about me to each one of
Right.
my daughters? And guess what? My oldest daughter, she told me how she felt. I asked her at the end of that conversation, can you forgive me? Because I realized I wasn't a parent. I was your father, but I could tell myself I wasn't a parent. So
Mhm.
allow me to be a parent today. Can you forgive me and let me be a parent today? And she says, you know what, Dad? I forgive you, but I'll talk to you on my own terms.
Yeah.
Now, as a father, I accept that because I've had an opportunity for her to share her heart where I disappointed her, and then accept the fact that I don't understand forgiveness doesn't mean she's going to have a relationship with me right now, but that I created the space for her to say what she needed to say to me without me defending it. And then now it's up to her to look in her own life. And when she's ready to deal with that conversation with me, I'll be right here.
Yeah.
My middle daughter, she cursed at me for an hour and 45 minutes. And I let her. I did the same thing. I'm not going to defend
Mhm.
myself. And she and with I loved it with Brittany because you could see her go in her mind. Oh yeah, that one time and this, and then I'm like, anything else? Oh yeah, and then this one time you wasn't there for me, and okay, anything else? And then this and some of the stuff was legit. Like I could like okay, I could see myself. Okay, I could see that. Some of the stuff was like, where that come? Like I don't even know what you're talking about. And then some of that stuff was like, so that was all her truths, her experiences, and I had to allow her to get that out of her space so she could share that. And at the end of that conversation, the same thing. Okay, look, I get it. I'm not going to defend it. I own it. I own my past. But I'm asking you today, can you forgive me and allow me to be your parent?
Mm.
And she said, yes, Dad, I forgive you. I will allow you to be my parent. Now, mind you, she tested me along the way,
Yeah.
right? Until I passed enough tests that she saw that it disappeared. And
Right.
today, you wouldn't even think, and she was 25. So you
Mm.
wouldn't today when our communication with her and my two granddaughters that she has, you couldn't tell that there was a fracture in our relationship from her growing up to age 25
Yeah.
because we were able to create that space
Yeah.
to say, tell me how, I know I disappointed you because I was disappointed in my parents myself. So if I'm disappointed in my parents, then I know my daughters are. But
Mm.
even before that, I'm also disappointed in Farron because I wasn't proud of my behavior.
Right.
I wasn't proud of how I treated my parents, how I thought about my parents when I got clarity. I wasn't proud that oh yeah, I'm proud that my dad didn't like. I wasn't proud of that. I wasn't proud that how I treated my daughters. I actually did with my daughters the way that I thought my parents treated me. So I
Mm.
behaved in my own version of how my dad treated me and how my mom treated me in my own corrupted version of it though,
Right. Right.
right? Because they just did what they knew to do. So my dad treated me that way. So I'll do, and the worst thing I said was I'll deal with that when they get older.
Mm. Yep.
Because my dad
Yep.
dealt with how my dad was with me, and I didn't see them often. My dad didn't see me often either. So whatever, I just do it when they get older. Baby,
Yeah.
That was the worst decision that I made. You
Right.
know, but it's really that as a if you're a parent, and even if that child is 6 years old, 5 years old, and they have language, ask that child in a way that you don't defend yourself and say, "Hey, have I ever disappointed you?" And let them say what's on their heart, and you'll be surprised.
Mm.
You'll be surprised,
Yeah.
and that could be the start of the the returning of the heart back to the parent. That's my Malachi 4:6 scripture. Is the returning the hearts of our children back to their parents, to their father.
Mm.
Because we want to be connected to our parents. Those are the two most important people in our life. But at some point, there's a natural break in communication between child and parent. It's natural, and like you said, I don't think anybody escapes it.
Right.
But who I make it mean about me to survive that fracture is where the corrupted conversation started in the child.
Right.
And if the
Right.
parents aren't educated to know that, right, and have the skills to say, "Oh, what's going on over here? Like, why are you acting like that? Come here, let's talk. What's
Mm.
going on?" And allow that child to say, "Hey, call me out. Call me out. Did I say something? Yeah, you know what, Dad? You said something that was kind of hurtful to me.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, then, what was it? Okay. Oh, I didn't mean that. That's not what I meant to say. I meant to say this." But as you said, if you grew up in an environment where it's been a one-way conversation in your family, well, my dad didn't say nothing to me, so I didn't
Yep.
feel like I had to say nothing to you. And
Yep.
then we pass on those generational emotions that the child develops in their own version of it. And I
Yep.
became my mom and dad in my own way.
I mean, we even say to ourselves, "Well, I turned out all right. I
Right.
I did I did all right. So I'm just going to go ahead and repeat the same thing because they'll turn out all right too." But we forget that, you know, everybody's an individual and processes things in different ways. You see siblings a lot of times who grew up in the same household and
Same.
you would never know it
Yes.
because they both, all those siblings process the relationship with their parents, the circumstances, all of those things in very, very, very different ways. And so
Yeah.
you can't just assume that because you turned out okay, that you could repeat the same patterns with your kids and they're going to turn out okay too.
Yeah. And then what is the okay? Because if I say
Right.
I turn out okay, then there's still something I'm silently saying to myself that I'm not okay
Right.
with.
Right.
Right? That
Right.
and that's the power of when you listen to people talk and not react to them, but you listen and be like, "Oh, why did you say that word like that?
Mm,
What
yeah.
was that? Why did you, of all the words you could use to describe your mom, why did you use that?"
Right.
Right? And an example in my class, real quick, a guy stood up and shared about his mom. He's like, "I'm 35 years old, and every time I go see my mom, she tells me to grab a jacket. Like, I'm not cold, mom. Like, I'm not cold." So the coach was like, "What if that's how your mom expresses her love to you?
Mm,
What if her saying get a jacket is how she expresses that she loves you?
right.
But you don't hear it like that. You hear it like she telling me what to do, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
want a jacket." So those are the things that doesn't happen in adult life. That happens early on in our child ages.
Right.
And if there's and so when those disconnections happen from child to father and then child to mother, then I'm like, okay, in my mind, and my storyline is, well, I can't talk to my mom, my dad don't understand me, or my mom abandoned me and my dad don't care about me. So then where am I going to go for love and acceptance? I'm turning to my peers. And that pool is all trial and error
Mm,
until
very
that
true.
until that relationship breaks, and then now I'm by myself.
Yep.
And then now, who am I, or who can I turn to? And that
Right.
that could be a political party, that could be a gang, that could be a football club, it could be drugs, it could be pimps, prostitutes, like it could be whoever blows in my ear or whoever says, "Hey, oh, you don't have your family, come and hang out with us.
Yep.
I got you. Come and drinking." Like those are the different things. And so, but if the child heart is returned to us as the parents, then when I have an altercation, I'm going to be able to come to you and say, "Hey, mom, this is what happened today, and this is what blah blah," and I'm not going to react, "Oh my god, what? No, oh, let's talk
Right.
about that." So that's the beauty of altering these conversations
Yeah.
and healing the restoration of our child and parent relationship. And
Right.
it's really simple. It's really simple, but the willingness as a parent, again, to say, "Let me hear what's going on with you. Like, tell me." But you got to create that space, because I'm sure that the space is not there, because
Right.
you told that child, "Go get out of here. No, I ain't got time for you. Go sit down. Go.
Right.
Go sit down. I got it."
Yeah.
And then
We are going to run a little bit over today, you guys, because I have to get this question out because something just occurred to me. You good on
okay.
time?
Yeah, oh
You good
yeah, I'm
on?
good.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. So I have talked a lot about recently my little bit of frustration with the world and how people are so quick to want to embrace a label.
Mm.
now. And when you
Yes.
were talking about, how who's going to be whispering in your ear, what are you going to be a part of, and everything. Do you feel like the do you think that those things are related? Do you think that the way that we are so quick, and I just say we loosely, that how
Yeah.
people in general are so quick to want to grasp
Yeah.
onto a label,
Yes.
that could easily stem from a fracture within the family unit or the parent-child relationship?
Shouts out to my guy Caldwell Williams, who's 91 years old. This is the piece that I took away from his education from
Mhm,
goaltenders and now LBI Solutions, is at the end of the day of everything that we're talking about is the sense of belonging, and
mhm,
that child sense of belonging needs to be to the parents.
yeah,
That's the natural need of the sense for that child. And for most of us, it's been broken, it's been fractured. So, yes, by the time that sense of belonging is broken from that child to the parent, then who do I belong to?
mm,
I got to belong somewhere. And if I don't get to the point where I belong somewhere, then what happens? I have hope, but I have hopelessness. I have the disappointment in my parents, but in myself as well. Like, what did I do? Right? And then I
mm,
have despair of like, okay, so now what? And then I get to why bother? Why am I even here? And then we have suicide ideation,
mm,
right? So yeah, it's very that sense of belonging is at the core of us as what it is to be a human being. We're looking for somewhere to belong. And even if it's corrupted, a corrupted group, but I believe they accept me or they believe in me or I feel like I belong with them, but we're gonna go rob banks. It's like, okay, I'm not even worried about the unforeseen consequence. I'm just glad to be a part of it.
mm.
And unfortunately in the world, those things, that's what we see. And now we're fighting against that as a psychological warfare because the connection of what it is to be human is such a descriptive that I don't even want to feel what you have to say. Just do it.
Right,
I don't even want to feel it. So I'm gonna go join somebody that I feel like I'm connected to.
right,
I feel like I
right.
belong there. And maybe some of the stuff that they talk about is the stuff that I want to talk about. So then I'm connected, but even though it could be something that's so corrupted in my view, but I would rather, again, I'd rather be right than have love present.
Mm,
That's the human experience. I'd
right.
rather be right than to be right and say, well, you're right too, and then have love be in the presence. And so the labels, unfortunately, we get trapped, and that's why I don't like all the titles for myself. But that was part of my journey, is peeling off these labels, because I got so stuck as being a soldier that when the uniform was taken away, I don't know who Farron was, so I'm lost. So then why am I alive?
Right.
I became an advocate, but then it's like I don't want to talk about sickle cell trait all the time. But then I
Mm,
felt like I had to because I took that on as an identity. Then I felt like I have to talk about sickle cell all the time.
yeah.
So yes, the sense of belonging, the layers of the identity. So who am I identifying as a child? I can't identify with my dad or my mom because they don't understand me, or whatever that. And parents, if you really listen to your children, if you really listen, they're telling you exactly what they're dealing with. They're saying it out of their mouth by the choice of words that they're using to describe their world.
Yeah.
We describe our world, but when you say what's so about the world, then you can get help in that space. I got problems. My mom don't like me. What part of your mom that you don't like about her? Oh, she does this and this. Well, maybe that could be how she takes care of you, or you know, the abandonment issue. I
Mm,
thought my mom abandoned me for 32 years, from 8 to 40, but she didn't.
mm.
It was an era where we had to come home by ourselves with the latchkey kid,
Latchkey kids.
right? And so, but I
Yep.
made it mean that my mom abandoned me and I
Right.
had to be responsible for this key.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't realize at 8 years old that saying that I can't trust my mom and she abandoned me, that she represented all women from that point of 8 years old.
It's a rabbit hole. Once you create one belief, it plays off. And that's why this conversation continues to be so important, because it really does have a play in and starts to shape other relationships.
Yes.
These conversations are not I don't think either one of us are saying that this is automatically a fun time.
No.
I don't think either one of us are saying that this is easy. And one of the things that we do on Beyond 2D is we give people the space to start exploring what these things mean to us, which is what we're going to be continuing to do in an even more interesting way as the season continues for Beyond 2D. I just need 59 seconds of love from my friend Dorothy O'Shea, and we'll be right back to talk about the remainder of the season of Beyond 2D.
I shall stand for love, even with a broken soul, even with a heavy heart. I shall stand for love, for the world is wounded, not just my little piece of land, where I am mostly safe, where I am mostly well, but our world, everywhere, every day. I shall stand for love, because we need more light, not more death, not more power, not more bombs. I shall stand for love, so that our children are safe, so that our friends are sheltered, so that our borders are open. I shall stand for love, even with a broken soul, even with a heavy heart.
Welcome back to the Breakthrough Show. I'm Jessica Dugas. I'm here with my guest today, Farron Dozier.
I'm on the other side of the mic today, huh?
I'm trying to. I keep trying to say co-host every time we come back, because we co-host a show together on the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month called Beyond 2D. And there's a couple reasons it's called that. One, we have Dugas and Dozier, so there's two of us, 2Ds happening in the room. We both come from very different ways of life and perspectives, and we share a lot of commonalities too. But we kind of have made this commitment to explore things together. This is not a show where we necessarily bring on experts all the time to talk, because I believe that so much of our expertise comes from life itself and what we live and what we experience. And so up until this point, we're on season 3. Up until this point, we have been exploring, we'll take a topic and we'll break it down into 4 sections, and we'll do it over the course of 4 episodes. And throughout all of these topics, we've talked about so many things, from integrity to communication to authenticity to, there's just so many things that we have talked about thus far. We've talked about love and Farron's favorite topic, love languages.
No. Not.
and boundaries, which is Farron's other favorite word.
And not.
So we've talked about all these things and kind of broken them down, but I think very similar to what I'm talking about with my frustration with labels at the moment. Yeah. There's a lot of things that we're going through as a people, as humans. There's a lot of words and phrases that are being thrown around right now. There's a lot of opinion, and there is a ton of division. Yeah. When it's so silly to me, we can't even have a conversation without somebody getting mad. And so what we want to do on the remainder of Beyond 2D is to have some of the more difficult, challenging topic conversations live on air. Because why the hell not? What are some of the things Okay, why is this important to you that we do this? And what are some of the things that you want to see addressed or talked about in the remaining season?
You know, this conversation was kind of the foundation of preparing for this episode for the next
Mm.
season, for this rest of this Beyond 2D season. It goes back to, if we look at that space where that child is now not connected to their family anymore, and I'm turning to my peers for love and acceptance and the sense of belonging, what we see in the world is that. And the opinions, so the ministry that God has given me out of my own life experiences was at the foundation of, I had to give up my opinions about myself first. And when you have these opinions of yourself, what gets what it costs to have an opinion about yourself and other people is, it costs affinity, it costs joy, it costs peace, it costs love, right? So there's nothing wrong with having an opinion, but when the opinion is up against another human being is where we have the conversations that we're about to have. You can have your opinion about politics or what's the best car, the best Nike, what's like. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you have an opinion up against another human being, that's where that judgment comes in, and we're not supposed to judge one another as people. But the judgment is the opinion. And if I talk to you, Jessica, like a person who the world talks about that wears glasses, I have a whole lot of opinions about people with glasses.
Mm.
And those opinions may not have nothing to do with you as a person. But because
well, you want to tell me about your opinions about me? But that's truly how people respond.
Yes.
You know, in that kind of way.
Yeah. So that's, so at its core of the conversation for me is, yeah, we want to hear where your opinions are they from? And then let's talk about your opinions. Let's talk about, how did you learn about that opinion? My dad swore he was racist, but my grandfather planted a seed in him at 8 years old and told my dad, I'm going to teach you how to be independent so you don't have to depend on the white man. Mm. So what that did, because my grandfather on my dad's side was a child post-slavery. So he grew up in the white people can't stand them, Jim Crow, blah, blah, all that stuff. Oh, that was before Jim Crow, or probably during. Yeah, that was during. So my dad at 8 years old hears be independent from the white man and grows up independent, but then his subconscious mind is collecting evidence about the white man in the negative context. So my is 60 years old claiming he's racist. And I asked him that question. He told me that story. And I'm like, that's not your own influence. You were influenced by something that your father said to you at 8 years old, and then you played it out in your life. So it's things like that I got from my dad, same way, about money and about relationships. That's like, I have an opinion about it. And it gets in the way of having relationships with people and connecting with people. So the political party conversation, I mean, look at athletes, look at sports. Fans kill themselves over a jersey that they don't even own the team, but they fight because I'm a Raider fan and you're a Bronco fan, and then you're a fan. So the label of being a fan, Bronco fan, you're not a human being. You're not a person. You're a label. And so what we do with those labels, we destroy them. Perfect example of me being a soldier for 24 years in the Army. My brain has been taught to label another human being as a terrorist, and I'm trained to kill terrorists. But I have to remember that that terrorist is a person. That's somebody's dad. That's somebody's son. That's somebody's brother. That's somebody's cousin. Law enforcement, we do the same thing. Oh, you're a suspect first. So all these different things that's going on in the world, they're people first.
Right.
They're people.
We don't want, and I talked about this a couple weeks ago. We don't want to use the label of human or person, because then that would mean that we had something in common with these people that we abhor in our lives, that we completely, we think they're monsters. And so if we were to let go of all these micro labels that we have, then that would mean the only label left is human. And that means that we share it with some of the people that we think are the worst people that ever walked the face of the earth.
Yes. And as you said, that is something that has been put on my heart. It's really why I do what I do. Honestly, the sickle cell trait is my activity of life, but this other conversation is my experience of life. And so I'm working both of those in conversations, but at the end of the day, it starts in our home, right? And if you talk to guys that's been in jail, that are in jail now, like what had you get in here behind this cell? Oh, my dad wasn't there for me, or my mom wasn't there, or it disappointed me, and the parents are like, I gave you the car, I gave you the house, I put you through college. Yeah, but where was your time? You gave me this stuff, but where were you at? So it puts us as people to go join these clubs. There's nothing wrong with joining a club, but
what do you make it mean about yourself?
What you make it mean about yourself? Yes, and I believe if you have a conversation long enough with the person that's willing to have that conversation, those reasons turn into reasons that are not their own influence reasons. And that's the space where you could be like, well, you know what? Maybe I don't want to be a part of that anymore. Maybe that's not really what I want to be associated with, because I didn't understand the other aspect of it. Right. And I believe that those are the conversations that we're going to have, that, you know, we're going to share from our own personal experiences, but then allow people to come here and talk about, you know, what's your view on that conversation? And then are you willing to look at another side of it?
Right.
And if you're not, then that's okay. But then you get what you get in that world of that label.
Yeah. I would love to see us start off with this conversation about labels, and, you know, because I think that getting that off the table is going, or starting that on the table is gonna set the stage, set the place settings for the rest of the conversations that are coming.
Exactly.
Because you always talk about, what are the filters that you put everything through, your principles, your spirituality, what are the things that everything else you do in your life is run through. Yeah. And I feel like if we run through the everything else that we do through this, well, what do we say about labels? Right. and belonging and things like that that's what's going on. But we are going to be starting this off on Tuesday, October 14th. Check this out. Ready? Bam.
Boom.
There it is.
It's off limits.
All of these things.
No thing.
Nothing is off limits. We're going to have a fun time. And I will say this, I want everybody to get out of their mind this phrase, and you can fill in the blank with whatever you want. Because I'm blank, I don't get to have a say in this conversation.
Yeah. Because
you're white, because you're black, because you're poor, because you're young, because you're old, because you're anything. Yeah. I can't be a part of this conversation. I want everybody to just get that out of their mind. And I want to tell you that Farron and I are inviting you to dinner the rest of the year. We are giving you a seat at the table.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Join us. Bring it to the
great.
table. Let's unravel it. No, it's wild because I was talking to Caldwell, and at his church, an older lady in his age frame, she mentioned to Caldwell that, the Indiana Hoosiers, the Hoosier term,
Mm-hmm.
for her in her childhood was like the N-word for blacks.
Yeah.
That being called a
Interesting.
Hoosier.
Yeah.
And so it's derogatory in her generation, but in a term of endurement as a label for that community.
Right.
And so when Caldwell told her about our conversation, our education, our curriculum, she was blown away because she was like, well, that was for me, my hurt
Mm.
was being called a Hoosier. And it's like, wow. So there's so many layers to the labels that
We're gonna peel them off.
we're
gonna peel them off. And I can't guarantee you're gonna like everything we say, but we're sure gonna try. We're sure gonna try over here.
Oh, we don't give no warm and fuzzies here.
There is no guarantee.
No guarantee on the box.
Farron, tell everybody where they can find you, and I put your website scrolling down there at the bottom, farrondi.com, where they can find you, what they do, how they go, where all that fun stuff. Tell them about yourself.
Right here is at Farron Dozier on all platforms. The farrondi.com will take you to literally everything that I'm up to. Is associated at the farrondi.com. For my sickle cell trait conversation is wdconset.org. I'm a proud co-owner of 3 American Basketball Association teams. So if you remember the red, white, and blue basketball, remember that logo there?
Yeah.
So we own 3 ABA teams: the Inland Empire Hounds, the Ventura County Orcas, and the Riverside County Mavericks. So if you want to check those out, you can get to there on the farrondi.com. I get to speak at church, my cousin's church, on Youth Sunday. So all the ministry stuff that I'm blessed to be a part of, that God has blessed me with, all these stories that I'm talking about, all at farrondi.com. So either you can find me there or at the Farron Dozier at sign.
There it is.
Oh, and rhabdomyolysis, if I could just say that real quick. That conversation has been very important for me because I experienced that. But even today, there have been an athlete in the WNBA. She collapsed during the playoffs from the Indiana team, the Fever, and she experienced rhabdomyolysis. And in worst case, that could cause sudden death. So there's a few topics that I care about, but all of that you can find there at farrondi.com. Sure.
farrondi.com.
The D is for don't ask.
Thank you for joining me as a guest
Thank
today. Am
you.
I the right
different.
host?
Yeah, you know what? It's different to be on the other side of the microphone where I get to express myself.
I know.
Yeah, no, thank you for creating the space you do. Everything you do here for us on this platform is beautiful. Your intros, your graphics. I know people don't understand it behind the scenes.
They don't. Yeah.
Not to just have a show, but to have a network.
Yeah.
That's a lot. So thank you for what you provide for all of us here on your platform.
Thank
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
And we love it, and we love you.
Thank you. And thank you for being a part of it and for sharing what's on your heart. I always have so much appreciation for what you're sharing out in the world, because I just am of the opinion, if you're sharing goodness, if you're sharing the good news, whatever the good news is, then we just need more of that, please. Okay.
Let me say this too.
Yeah.
As a parent, I believe one of the fears, and maybe you can share, one of the fears of even the healing process of this relationship with our children is that we don't walk away feeling like we are a bad parent. I think that was one of the biggest fears, and we didn't get a chance to say that, but that's what, as I healed with my mom and dad, I got a sense of some of that but I did the best that I could, but I also feel like I did something wrong, right? And so to parents, you don't do anything wrong. You got to give that up as yourself as a parent to say, hey, you did the best what you could, what you had, and allow that child to express themselves back to you so that we can keep this, so that we can restore our families. If we restore ourselves and then our families and then our community and then our society, our nation gets restored just by us reconciling ourselves for ourselves.
If you can,
as soon as I did that,
yeah,
as soon as I got that, and I love Farron 80%, then I could love Jessica at least 80%.
Yeah.
And even the 20% that I don't love about myself, that's still on Farron to figure out
Yeah.
what is that 20% I don't like about me. But parents, you have to allow your child, if we're doing that as adults, what is that child made up at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old? You don't think that they have an I'm not about themselves? But it doesn't make us as bad parents either. So thank you. I needed to say that.
Yeah. Well, and I think a great analogy for me is, my kids don't do the right thing all the time, but I don't make them they're not a bad kid. They made mistakes, but so I would say the same thing to a parent. You can make mistakes as a parent and still be a good parent.
Yes.
Like you don't have to make it into
even though the child's perception of the parent is like mom and dad should do no wrong. But as soon as they catch you doing something wrong,
yeah.
Now, my mom's not perfect. My dad's not perfect. Oh, that's the mind blower. Like, okay, then so now I gotta look out for y'all because y'all not perfect. Like that creates this whole story that we are.
No more drama. No more. Mary J. Blige sang about it. Mary J sang about it. I literally had that as the song behind our graphic on the Instagram today. Thank you so much, Farron, for being here today. Thanks, everybody, wherever you are in the world watching or listening. We appreciate you so much. We would love for you to leave a comment. Let us know where you are joining in from and what you got out of our conversation today, if anything. I'm Jessica Dugas, and I want to remind you to make every day a great day for a breakthrough, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.